This is episode 165 on the Happiness Happens podcast. Have you ever had those moments that are pure joy and pure bliss that are completely unexpected? Finding joy, happiness, and purpose in our lives does not have to be this big emotional thing. It can be as simple as leaning into more of what makes you smile, more of what sets your soul on fire, and more of what lights you up every single day. My friend Annik is joining me in this episode today, and her and I always have such a great time when we chat because there's always so much to discuss. In this episode, we're talking all about how to find genuine joy in unexpected places. Annik is the CEO of Annik Welsh Social, and she's also a certified mindset coach. She has a passion for helping entrepreneurs attract their dream clients online. And when I tell you that she does this really well, she's really, really, really good at what she does. Her passion lies in helping others discover that they have everything they need within them to achieve the things that they want in life. From Annik's perspective, it's just a matter of learning how to tap into your inner light through self-trust, surrender, and a little mindset work. In this conversation, we're talking about what happiness means to Annik. You know how much I love to ask everyone that question. Why it's okay to find happiness from external and internal sources, the power of sitting in moments of joy, how to shift your mindset in a sustainable way, and why healing work is continuous. Let's get into today's conversation. Be sure to let me know what you love the most about this episode and connect with both of us on social media so that we know you're listening. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode. I'm super excited to be on here today with one of my favorite people on the planet. Her name is Annik, and I'll have to tell you a little bit about Annik real quick before we say hi to her, but I just wanted to let you all know that Annik is a huge reason of a lot of my own business growth, my personal development. She was my, how long? 9 months.
7 months
7 months.
Yeah.
And it was the best investment and experience of my entire life. So I just want to preface the conversation with that, and I loved it. I loved it. So anyways.
I better bring it now.
Right? No pressure, no pressure. Oh, but thank you so much for joining me, Annik. I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Simona, for having me. I couldn't be more excited to be here to talk to you about happiness, because it's been on my mind lately. It's actually been something that I've been thinking about a lot. And so I love that we're talking about this today. It's just very timely.
Oh, I love that. And of course, everything that you and I end up doing is always so timely because I feel like on the same brainwave.
Yeah.
But okay, so I would love to know then, let's start off this episode. Can you tell me what happiness means to you?
So, like I said, it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, right? And I think what triggered it is I saw someone post recently about, and they put up a poll in their story, and it was a question of like, what is happiness to you? And it was a poll between, is happiness a feeling or is it a state of mind? And so that got me really thinking. And even it was like a influencer that posted this. So even talking with my friends, that come up with my friends later that week, and they're like, oh, I saw this person put up this poll in their story. And I was like, oh my God, I saw that too. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. And so it just sparked this whole discussion about, whether happiness is a feeling or a state of mind, which I thought was really interesting. I can't say that it's one or the other. I think it's really a combination of both. But if we're talking pure joy, I mean, it's that like feeling of bubbliness, like that is just in your stomach. And it's like excitement and happiness and also peace all rolled into one. So physically, that's kind of what happiness is to me. But on a more thoughtful level or mindset level, it's really a mix between, being triggered by an external event when you get that feeling of happiness, like something happens to you and it just brings you joy. Like you get a new job or someone messages you that you've been like thinking about or whatever that is. But then on the flip side, it is also that state of mind of you are more likely to experience that feeling every once in a while and have that feeling come up spontaneously if you already have like this baseline of joy kind of cultivated within you that you nurture on a regular basis. And that's the state of mind side of things, I would think. I would love to know what your thoughts are on that, Simona, like whether you think it's a feeling or a state of mind.
I love that you said that, feeling versus state of mind. And I've been having conversations about happiness for a very long time. And it's funny because no two people have ever described it the same way ever. Happiness is something that looks so different to every single person. And I think that's why I'm so dedicated to understanding these conversations and why people think about happiness in the way that they do and how they think about happiness, right? It's interesting. Like, I think it is a combination of both. And I think too, you said something in there that really like piqued my curiosity, if you will. You had said that, when you have external happiness, right?
Yes.
Some people will also say that, happiness shouldn't, right? But I don't necessarily agree, because I agree, like I agree with you that you have to have the external, internal motivators, I guess. And those are the things that overall happiness. It's a combination. It's not just one specific thing, no matter how much we wish it could be.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more. And I think sometimes when we talk about happiness being, you can't have it solely based on the external things, right? And that's why you do have to cultivate a sense of joy within yourself, and have that come internally. But if you close yourself off to all of those kind of external experiences of happiness that can be triggered at any moment in time, you're shutting yourself off to being open to new experiences, right? And that is so detrimental. Like, how exciting is it that like you could wake up one day and, oh, maybe this thing is going to happen, or maybe something's going to happen that's just going to like spark joy, right? And that you get to think about those things. Something that actually came up in my last new moon ritual that I did. I've been doing these new moon rituals every month, and Simona's been to a couple of them. And I did the December one, I themed it around joy and happiness and finding joy in unexpected places. And something that was in my little mindset teaching that I do at the top of the new moon ritual was about how often we assume that our joy and happiness is conditional. And I think that's when seeking external joy solely can be doesn't serve us, right? Because often we'll assume like, well, our happiness or joy fully depends on our response to external circumstances or positive events in our lives. So like, I'll be happy when this happens, or I'll be happy when I achieve this, right? Like, we're so familiar with that as entrepreneurs, and even in our day-to-day lives. Like, I'll finally be happy when I have that life partner, I've found that person, or whatever it is, right? And so that's why it is so important to look inward for that joy. But those little triggers of happiness that happen externally, I think, are still so important. It's just we can't solely rely on them, because we can't have our happiness be conditional, or else we'll never be happy, right?
Exactly. And you said so many things in there.
Yeah, I did.
No, but there's so much that I want to like pull apart from that. And the first thing is this. One of the things that you and I worked on a lot, especially when we did coaching together, I have always been someone that's like, I will be happy when. Like, I don't even think I knew that about myself. I think that, I was very like motivated by the specific thing that was going to happen, And so I think that live like that, it's right, because you get to the thing and it doesn't bring you the joy, that you thought it would bring. And so one thing and something I still practice today, and something that's been a really big part of my life, like, find those little moments of joy and hang on to them. And I've been so careful of that now, that, if I'm living in a moment, like my word for 2022 is presence. In years past, it's been so many different ones, like, goal-oriented, if you will.
Like expansion or
growth or this, whatever. But I think that presence for me, it's in all areas. It's being present in the interview that we're doing, also present in my life, you know what I mean? And so I started, like, I put my phone to sleep at like 9 o'clock, and I just, like, if I'm going to play, I'm just like, what, I'm done. Like, anything else that you get done today, unless it's 911 urgent, it will always get done. And that's another thing that you taught me. It will always get done. And and I have these little reminders. I have them written for myself, and they become so a part of me, which is amazing. So the other flip side that I have to just throw in here really quick is, when you were saying that, I kept thinking about, you had said if you don't like let yourself experience, then how can you miss out on so many other things, right? One thing that and it was in a past episode of this year, and it was with Carissa. And so if you guys want to go back to that episode, and in that episode I had said, and it was kind of towards the end, and I had said, like, essentially it's a disservice to your own self if you don't step in and try different things, whether you like it or not. But it's a service to just assume that you don't like it,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. One of those I love that you bring in being present, because that's such a key part of being able to find joy, because often we spiral in these moments where we don't realize that, yeah, like in this moment, actually, we are very safe. We are very good, like things, but we spiral because we think about the future and we worry, right? And that's where like anxiety lives in the future, right? So if we're able to kind of sit in the present moment, we can cultivate that joy, and we can actually look at our lives objectively and be like, oh, what is going right now? And that's something that is a really good question if you are spiraling, but it's like, ask yourself, what is going right now? So like, I encourage you to take that, present moment awareness process a step further than just being present, looking around, sitting in the joy, sitting in the abundance, focusing on your breathing, all that stuff that we do. Finish it off and close that practice off with the question of what is going right now, because I find that brings it all together, right?
I love that you look at it through that question, because our brains are so easy to jump into negative all the time. Like you can win, for example, I'll take a business for like a business win, like this big business that you have been trying to get, like, and it's like, oh my God, but like, what if it's not enough? What if I'm not enough? What if I'm not good enough? And instead of being like, how can I say this more? And I didn't celebrate anything before you either. Like I would, get a new client, or I would like hit a goal, or I would do, and I'd be like, okay, on to the next one.
Right. What's next?
No presence. There's no grounding. There's no gratitude. That moment.
Absolutely.
So how can you have more?
Absolutely. Right. And that's something that we would talk about in our coaching too, is it was like sitting in those little moments of abundance, which I love that you're still practicing, or those little moments of joy. It's like when you are living your life and you just have that moment where, I don't know, whether you're sitting with your partner, or if you have kids, your kids are playing around you, or you're cooking your favorite meal or something. And just like, it's just this like wash of gratitude that runs over you. Sit in that. Like, don't let it be fleeting. Like, stay in it for a little bit, because the more you practice doing that, the more you're going to realize that your life is really good. And we jump forward so often in our lives. It's like, we hit the goal and we think about what's next. What are we going to do next now that we've hit the goal? That we rarely realize how far we have come and how important it is to sit in our current accomplishments and successes, and not even successes to the fact of like, well, now I'm finally making this much money, and now I have this many clients, and now all of these things are happening in my life. But successes as in like, look what I have built around me. Like, look at this beautiful home, or even if you're still in an apartment, look at all the things I've hung on the walls. Like, it's appreciating where you are in the moment, and like that your past self would probably be so proud of you, and all of the things that you have accomplished and how far you have come. Something a really good friend of mine taught me, my friend Taylor, who Simona knows, Taylor Efford, she taught me, she said one of her favorite exercises when we talk about this kind of thing is, she's like, what would 10-year-olds say to you? What would 10-year-old you say to you right now in this moment about all of these things? And then also, what would 10 years from you now you say to you now? So your future self, what would your future self say to you now? And often when I do that exercise, my future self says to me, you're doing great, just keep going.
I think it teaches us how to become a little bit more resilient, and how to like not have that particular thing happen again if we don't want it to happen again.
Absolutely.
Right? But also, I think we have to go through all of those moments. And I think that, when you take out the drama, and you take out the doubt, and you take out all of the different things that we create in our lives because of the stories we tell ourselves, we're literally all here just for a human experience, having a ride.
Yes. And we forget about that so much. And right? I have to remind myself that all the time. It's like, it's just life, it's
too, like, I have to acknowledge as we're saying this, though, it is a very privileged perspective.
Yes.
Because, not everyone gets to have that awareness, and not everyone gets to ever have that opportunity to even not have to worry.
Some people go through some really difficult things. And I do want to acknowledge that it's, it's not just as easy as me saying, well, get in the present moment for a minute, like there are things to work through there. And I really want to acknowledge that and validate that experience, but also knowing that those worries are natural. And, something that I love to talk about too, in that sense, is like, our emotions aren't necessarily good or bad, and we shouldn't be defining them in those ways. And so if you're going through something difficult, like let yourself process that and go through it. And I want to acknowledge, yes, like we do come from a very privileged perspective where we come from a place where we were able to do a lot of work on ourselves, I think. And not everybody has that opportunity. And so yes, thank you for bringing that up, Simona.
No, of course. But I even think too, like a lot of people don't even have that awareness all the time. Do you know what I mean? And I think that that's why conversations like this are so important, because it allows you to experience something different than what you may have ever thought of before. I love to think that the conversations we have on here are changing people's mindsets just by a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot, you know?
I mean, if they pick up on one little golden
thing,
nugget that they can start implementing easily in their lives, then that's great. Like, I'm not the type of person that's like, oh, change your life right now. Like, take the one doable thing, the teeniest, tiniest thing. Don't even set a weekly goal, set a monthly goal. Like, take the teeniest, tiniest little nugget, do your gratitudes once a week for all I care. Don't have to do them every single day, you know, like do what you can so that you can sustain it in the long run. Like, that's what the most important thing is.
That's so important. And I think, too, it really makes me think, okay, so let's go back to 2021. And when you and I met, I think we both in 2021 had, and here's the thing that's so special, I think, with Annik and I is like we did coaching together, but also we became friends in the process.
Yeah.
And so like we talk outside of coaching. And so, we know things about each other's lives and this and that. But we can take this more from like, my own personal experiences, because I was the client and you were the coach, right? So if I think about like, how much we change and pivot and grow and evolve, I would love to know, your thoughts on how to, sustain that resilient mindset in times that are very hard or look very challenging, or we're not 100% sure where we want to go, what we want to do. Is this the right move? Is it not? Like, I would love your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, honestly, when you're feeling unsure, like it's a very common place to be. Like, it happens to everybody, even though we don't show it on social media. A lot of people fall into ruts where they feel stuck. They don't know what their next move is. And I've been there many times too, because I'm someone who really relies on my intuition, and I go where I feel inspired to go. It's like, oh, well, this thing would be exciting to try, so that's what I want to do next. But sometimes that inspiration isn't there. And so I think in those moments, what we're being called on to do is really just to sit and reflect. And it's a time for reflection for us. I'm typically someone who is very go, 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 because I do like to do so many different types of things. But at the same time, because of that, I've had to really cultivate a practice of like calming myself down, learning how to reflect. And I really enjoy that time. And sometimes it's forced on us because it's something that we need to go through, right? And so it's okay if you don't know what direction you want to take next in your life. I think what's important to reflect on is why you might be feeling stuck. Sometimes it's because you are just feeling uninspired. Maybe you've been burnt out, and so that's causing you to not feel creative and not really know what direction you want to go in. Maybe you need to make a big change, and that's really scary. And so it's easier to stay in that stuck place than to actually take the leap and make that big change. So it can be a culmination of so many things. So I would really like just look into why you think you're feeling stuck or uninspired or unsure of what direction you want to go in next. And I think also, as someone who is an external processor, and this is one of the big reasons I became a coach, is talk to somebody about it. Like, even if it's just a friend, like if you can't afford a coach, go talk to a friend, someone you trust, and like use them as a soundboard, because that can really help as well. Sometimes we get so stuck in our heads, especially when we're in those states of not being able to move forward, because we turn really inward and we kind of get closed off a little bit if we're feeling burnt out, if we're feeling scared, whatever it is. And so, talking to someone can really help as well.
Those are really great tips. And I think too that it doesn't always have to be this big gigantic thing. And I think that that's kind of like the misconception, I think. And I read this thing. Okay, two things here. So the first thing is, I think that it can be a huge misconception when we think that healing has to be this big, grand, spectacular.
Yes.
Like, sometimes it is, right?
Yeah, sometimes it's very explosive, but yes, continue.
But for the most part, no. But for the most part, it's not those big, massive things. It's those little tiny moments, right? And, I saw this thing that one of my friends, and her name is Jana, and she's an energy healer. I've done 2 episodes with her in the past, so you can go back to those and listen to those. But she had posted something, And essentially it was like I don't want to get it wrong, but the idea was that don't make healing your whole identity. Like your
Yes.
healing doesn't have to be all of who you are. It's a part of your journey, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily like, hi, I'm Simona and I'm healing right now. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like you don't have to. It doesn't have to be like that. It can coexist with joy and happiness. Healing and happiness are literally, in my
yes.
books, on the same plane.
And way to come full circle, because if we are solely relying on being fully healed to find happiness and waiting for that to happen, we're putting a condition on our joy,
You're gonna be
right?
waiting a real long time.
You're gonna be waiting a really long time. I was literally talking to someone about this like last week, who was like, she's gone through this healing process, and now that she's taking another big leap in her life, stuff is coming back up, and she's like, I thought I did all this work and really healed myself, and now all this stuff is coming up and I'm feeling really discouraged. And it's like, this stuff's going to continue to come up. Like it's healing is 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Like that's how it works. I had stuff come up this past week that I haven't experienced in the like since I was like 18 years old, I think. Like it'll find a way, my friend. If you push that stuff down, like it'll find a way, to be like, okay, let's just acknowledge me again, please. I'm still here a little bit. So like yeah, exactly. Popping its little head out, being like, hey, can you like give me a little bit of attention, please?
Exactly. But yeah, I like that you said that a lot though, because sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm just thinking, because like I feel like things come up when they're meant to. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like we're meant to go through, I think, specific types of healing in specific times. But I also think too that it makes you a more well-rounded. I think when you acknowledge the things you feel and you actually take action to transform them, I think that you a more fuller version of you.
Yes, absolutely. You're still you. You grow, right? And I think that awareness can be such a powerful tool. And I think a really good way to approach that awareness is, with light and love, but also like fun and playfulness. Like when this stuff came back up for me that I haven't had come up in years and years and years and years, just this past weekend, it was like I was really stressed about it in the moment. I was like, what the hell is going on? But now I'm like 2 days later and I'm thinking back about it. I'm like, oh my goodness, silly Annik, like silly little Annik, like this little thing is coming up again for you. And it's just like, if you can look at it in that way of like, oh, like I've been suppressing you a little bit. I do love you. And you're coming up like my little piece of my persona that needs to be healed a little bit, it's like kind of cute. It's like, oh, okay, hello, so I think, yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. So I think if you can acknowledge it with lightness too, and like you said, don't make your whole identity about healing. It's a part of life. It doesn't have to be so serious, because it can be intense. Yes, it can be absolutely intense, but I think you can have fun with it, because once you start to recognize when it comes up, it can be very powerful. And I think it's empowering. And that's when it becomes empowering, you have the opportunity to look at it with a little bit of lightness, because it's like, yes, here we go, So I think that can help a lot too.
That's so good. It's so true. And I think honestly, Annik, I could talk about happiness all day with you, I think.
I know.
Because we have so many similar thoughts. Like we have so many similar things that we both, I think, eye to eye on a lot of different stuff. And okay, so this is and I can't believe how fast time has flown in this conversation.
I'm like, are we done already? Like, what?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy, because
oh my gosh, that was fast.
I know, but I'm gonna ask my last question that I ask all of my guests when they come. I never get the same answer. So I mean, maybe once I've gotten the
no
same
pressure.
No pressure. So you have to come with your unique answer. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, it is. What can someone do to create a little more happiness in their day, every day?
Well, like I said, my big thing is finding joy in unexpected places. So that's one of my favorite affirmations, is I find joy in unexpected places. It's an intention I set for myself very often when I know that I need it. And it's unexpected places means, in the unexpected. So it's like, if I'm doing my work, or like I'm doing something that I find I drag my feet on, typically it's like I create content a lot, right? So I'm writing content. If I write a funny typo, or I like write down a stupid pun, like laugh at myself a little bit, and then I'll change it. It's like just the littlest things. It's like, how can you laugh at yourself just a little bit more in your day to day to lighten things up? So I think that's something that I absolutely love. I mean, I could go to your typical like practice gratitude, stay present. There's all of that stuff, but I think that one's really important. It's something we forget a lot because we get bogged down by the day-to-day stuff a lot.
So true. As you're saying that, I'm just so reminded that we all make mistakes every day. And you're in the social media content creation world, you're also in the coaching world, and then I'm in the podcast production world, and mistakes happen. And I see all the time. I'm in all of these Facebook groups for, content stuff. And, gosh, I need some encouragement right now. Like I made a typo in a post, and I'm like, it's not the end of the world. Like, it's good that sure, you want to, honor that, but sometimes those things are not as big of a deal as, like you said, you can actually laugh at it and then just fix it, find a solution and move on.
Fix it. Fix it. Apologize to the client. Put in processes for it not to happen again.
Exactly.
But
But if that specific thing never happened, you wouldn't learn the lesson that you needed to learn, and then maybe it could happen in a different way that you wouldn't want it to happen.
And that's how healing works, right? That's why it can be very small like that, right? Where there's a typo and you're like, oh shit, I need to put better processes in place. Or it's a really intense thing that's coming up for you where you need to make a whole shift in your life, But I think it's really important to find joy in those. Or if you're doing a piece of work that you absolutely hate, what brings you joy in that? Light a candle, make a tea. It's those littlest things that will just elevate your quality of life day to day. I feel by that much more. Buy the piece of clothing that makes you feel good, just once, just do it.
Okay, Annik, where can people find you and your podcast and your services and your
Tell me all the things. Many things. Well, and I don't know if you're into human design. I'm a manifesting generator, so I do a million things.
Same. Doesn't that explain so much?
So I'm my podcast has nothing to do with my business. But so my podcast is My Girl Friday. I do it with my friend Taylor, who I mentioned. And it's just fun. We just sit down and we have fun. And the whole point is you feel you're sitting down with your girlfriends. We started during the pandemics, we missed girls' nights, and that was pretty much the goal. So we just shoot the shit. That's a whole other vibe. If you're looking for social media and mindset advice, if you're an entrepreneur, you can find me at Annik Welsh Social on Instagram, and you can check out my website, AnnikWelshSocial.com. So that's my professional business side. And shoot me a DM if you have any questions about anything we talked about, because I love getting to know people. So yes, please.
I love it. Thank you so much. Yes, everyone who's listening right now, just let us know that you're listening. Take a screenshot of this episode. Tag us on social media. I love to see when you're all listening. It makes my day, and I know it'll make my day too, to see that you're listening to this episode. Annik, honestly, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Simona. This was so lovely. I always love chatting with you. It's so easy.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. I hope you have a lovely week ahead. I cannot wait to talk to you on the next one. And remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.